Join me now to weigh in, representing Texas's 4th Congressional District, Congressman Pat Fallon. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. Congressman, we just played a couple of those shocking video clips that are going viral on social media of people just walking into a Walgreens or a CVS and just filling up bags of whatever they want as people just stand around and watch. In that first video, there's a security guard who's doing nothing, just filming the crime happening, and the guy casually bikes out of the Walgreens and nothing's done about it. I mean, we can't have this happening in communities. Obviously, this is in California, and they have different laws that have emboldened the criminals, and we'll go over those in a second. But it's really startling and shocking, and this is worth a conversation and discussion.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, Stephanie, this is lawlessness. I mean, when the district attorney says that they're going to decriminalize and not prosecute any shoplifting crime that's $950 or less, what you're going to get is a lot more shoplifting crimes that are $950 or less, and it's so patently unfair to the store owners.
Absolutely. And so, as I mentioned, just in the San Francisco area alone, they've shut down 17 Walgreens and CVS stores because they can't handle the crime. Like, they can't operate a business when people are just running through there and stealing whatever they want. But I found it fascinating that Walgreens back in 2020 was tweeting support for Black Lives Matter. And you think of what Black Lives Matter stands for in their mission. It's not really Black lives. They're just going after law enforcement. They've demonized law enforcement. They want to get rid of law enforcement altogether. So how does that help a corporation or a business like a Walgreens who's trying to just have a store in a community, but they can't run the store because of the lawlessness that's happening promoted by Black Lives Matter?
Well, Stephanie, you made a great point with the corporate collusion with the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa movement. It's insane. It's almost like, it reminds me of Churchill when he was talking about the problems that they were having in Europe in the mid last century. Was they want to be the alligator, they want to be eaten last by the alligator. I mean, you don't think that the Squad and BLM and Antifa aren't going to go after corporations? You're insane. And for them to collude with them and make them stronger makes no sense at all. Because at the end of the day, as American citizens, if we're not safe, then we're not free. And our law enforcement are our heroes. We pay them to go into harm's way for us, and we need to support them and not demonize them.
Yeah, and then in this particular situation in the San Francisco area, and just like big cities in general, you know, people walk to places. So when they shut down 17 stores, that really affects a lot of people who need to go pick up prescriptions. I get that it's a store, but it's where people get their prescriptions. And yeah, they can go to another store, but it's just, I mean, it's a huge inconvenience. And it shouldn't be like that. That's the thing, is that how have we gotten to this point where we just give in, throw in the towel, businesses as Walgreens, just throw in the towel because they just can't deal with it?
Right. Walgreens spends 3,500% more on security in San Francisco than they do in any other store and that they have across the country. And they're not going to be able to operate any longer. I mean, I used to own retail stores, and if I knew that customers could come in, or rather criminals could come in and just take what they wanted, provided it was $950 or less, you can't operate under that environment anymore. It's insane. It's just simply not logical.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned too, it's not just the crime that's happening with theft. We're talking about murders and random shootings, and there's just been so many viral videos of random violent attacks where the attackers appear to not even be trying to like steal a wallet or a bag or anything. They're just like attacking people out in broad daylight. And people want to live in safe communities. That is one of the most important things. People shouldn't be scared to go jogging and worried that they're going to be shot. That happened last week to a man who was just jogging, got shot for no reason. So what do you make of this? And what do you think the breaking point is where people are going to call their lawmakers and say and demand change?
I think that's going to happen anyway. I mean, you look across the country of large liberal cities that have defunded the police. You've got Portland, murders are up 270% in Portland. In New York City, they cut $1 billion with a B from the police budget. Murders are up 12%, shooting victims are up 40%. In Los Angeles, murders are up 28%, shooting victims up 100%. In Austin, Texas, $450 million police budget was slashed by a third, $150 million taken away. The result? Murders are up 54%. So, you know, crime doesn't go down when you defund police. Crime goes up because essentially what you're doing is incentivizing it and making it easier for criminals to be predators. So I think we're going to see in the next election cycle folks, you know, overwhelmingly demanding sanity. and safety and security for themselves and their families.
Yeah. Meantime, we do have a lot of issues here at home. Biden is abroad on his first foreign trip as president at the G7 summit. What do you make of his trip so far? Like, what letter grade would you give him on his performance? I think he has shown he's kind of a weak leader. He's gaffed his way through so far. At the beginning of the trip, Jill Biden had a stack of binders and books, and she was preparing for the G7 summit. I don't know why. She's the first lady. I don't know what she's preparing for. And Biden's been in office since before I was born, so you think he would naturally be prepared for this, but I guess not.
You would think he would be rather fluent on international relations, but of course, if I had to grade him, to your first question, being generous, a D-, and being really critical and fair, probably an F. I mean, when you see he cancels the Keystone Pipeline in this country, which is going to really hinder our growth and goal towards energy independence, and yet he looks the other way with Russia, and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is going to go into Eastern and Central Europe. That's not projecting strength, it's projecting weakness. And then to say that we're going to commit to spending trillions of dollars helping international infrastructure projects when we can't even pay for the ones that we have here in our home turf, it doesn't. He's not projecting strength as President Trump did. He's projecting, weakness, and it's really disheartening.
Yeah, we have an example of one of the major gaffes from the trip where he was confusing Libya and Syria. Roll tape.
Where we could work together with Russia, for example, in Libya. Russia has engaged in activities which we believe are contrary to international norms, but they have also bitten off some real problems they're going to have trouble chewing on. And for example, the rebuilding of Syria, of Libya, that where we can save the lives of people for example, in Libya.
I read over parts of the transcribed speech of his, and it wasn't even really English. And I've said it a million times. Public speaking can be difficult. Being on TV is difficult. It's live. And so once you mess up, you can't go back, and nobody's perfect. But Biden is just totally out of control, walking gaffe machine. And you wonder, what is going on in his mind?
Stephanie, that's the first time I've heard that clip and seen it. That is painful to watch. That was just I don't know what language it was, but it sounded more like mush than English to me. It reminds me of that uncle at Thanksgiving that has had way too much Ernest and Julio Gallo wine. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And I can't even keep a straight face. That was painful to listen to. And this is the leader of the free world?
Yeah, it's really terrible. And so we're also anticipating his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And so the media is really hyping up Biden. He's going to come in with strength, and he's going to show Putin who's boss. No, he's not. And also there's going to be no joint press conference by design, because probably the White House team already knows what's going to happen, and they just don't want to embarrass the White House any more than they already have than they have. And so, but I find it rather interesting that they don't want to have this publicized. Do you think that there's a reason for that?
Yeah, because Vladimir Putin, we have to remember, is a trained KGB operative. His entire life, he's been, counterintelligence. He does speak English. He doesn't do it publicly nowadays, but he knows the ins and outs of the international game very well. He's a sharp instrument. He's edgy, and we need a leader in our country that can go toe-to-toe with him. President Trump clearly was able to do that, and he respected and I believe really feared President Trump. He's looking forward to this, probably licking his chops like a lion looks at a wounded lamb. He's going to eat him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's my fear.
Yeah, and we heard Biden, too. He called Putin a worthy adversary in a press conference. So he's already kind of showing weakness in that sense. And it's interesting, he meets with Putin, no problem. But when Trump did it, Russia collusion, and Trump's bowing down to Putin, I mean, they had a lot to say about that. I saw a comment from Congressman Jim Jordan where he was criticizing Biden for, being out there palling it up with all the folks at the G7 summit. Meantime, the border crisis rages on here at home. I mean, we have a lot of problems. So I'm just wondering if the trip's worth it and what he's actually going to accomplish other than giving away U.S. taxpayer dollars for funding projects and whatever, kind of like Oprah would.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's very excited to go visit with international elites. And instead of putting America first, he's putting America last. And it's laughable to me that people in the media were criticizing President Trump and accusing him of being soft on Russia when he was actually very strong on Russia. Whereas if the proof's in the pudding, when Biden lays down for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and he doesn't say anything to Putin about this, or it doesn't call him out for the cyber attacks that we've had and the ransomware attacks in the United States. Well, when President Trump was in office for those 4 years, these ransomware attacks weren't nearly as frequent as they are today.
Yeah, no, we've seen a huge increase of these cyber attacks just in the past couple months, and so you can connect the dots here that these hackers know that we have a weak president in office and they feel like they can get away with it. But yeah, they need to call out Russia on this. We've been told that a lot of the hackers were coming from Russia, and so we'll see what happens with that. Well, Congressman, we're totally out of time. We appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. God bless. Take care.
Thank you.